And to the inevitable question of why do you own so many guitars? Well, I'm going to defend why it's not a bad thing to have multiple instruments. Everybody's heard this probably their entire life. You get it from, starts with your parents, then it goes to your girlfriend, then your wife, and then, every friend you got comes over and goes, why in the world do you have so many guitars? Well, if you're making a career out of music and playing, it's probably quite obvious to you why you would need all the instruments. I can get away with probably this bass for the rest of my life. This one is my favorite alembic. It does everything I need it to do, but it's not a fretless bass. It's a fretted bass. It's a 5-string. And that may not be the perfect match for a session or even a live gig. I used to do a gig where it was just bass and piano. I did that for 14 years. And that really required a 7-string for me to be happy. I would play up in the upper registers because I had to solo all night. And it was just nice not to have to be shifting way up the neck to get the solos in and then have to move around. It would just gave me a lot more creativity with a multi-string bass like that. Now, other gigs, 4-string is more than sufficient. If I'm doing like a 70s rock gig, then I like to take the old P basses. So I've got old P basses, 62 and 61 and earlier. Those just really fit the bill. They have the right sound. They kind of nail that classic rock tone that you're looking for. Now, other instruments that I have, gotta have a fretless. You're not going to get the fretless vibe out of this bass because you can't get that swelling or that wah that comes with having no frets on the fingerboard. So you're already into multiple instruments at that point. You need at least 2, but you're not going to get the rock vibe. So you got to have that P bass. And if you're a recording musician, they're not even going to let you in the studio without a P bass. So there you're up to 3 already. Then if you're trying to get more of the a little bit of a retro sound, but still going to give you a great wide range of tones and a good single coil sound. I like the Federa. The Federa bass, it's not got the ultra modern sparkle of an alembic, but it's got a different tonal palette, which is usable in many situations. It records well, and live it sounds great. And there's a lot of guys using them, so if you're trying to duplicate that sound, it's a good way to get it. Then once in a while, you're going to get a opportunity to use your old Rickenbacker. If you were doing something where you got to have that kind of clanky, chanky, clear sound of single coils, Rickenbacker's really on its own virtually. There's nothing that sounds quite like them. So if you're asked to duplicate that sound, you're pretty much stuck with needing one of those. So now we're up to 5 basses. All right, then there's always room for a jazz bass. They do have a different sound. Say I want to sound just like, oh gosh, Marcus Miller recording or something like that. I can pretty closely approximate it using the alembic, but it's not exactly the same. There's a difference in a Fender sound, and you're certainly not going to get it out of the P bass. So you go with the jazz bass. So I've got some of the custom shop jazz basses that really work well for that. And being that they have underwound pickups, there's really nothing that replaces those other than an actual 1962 or earlier jazz bass, and I can't afford it. So then you may stumble across something else that gives you a different tonal palette, and you may like that. And I recently bought a Japanese Fender Jaguar, and I remember when they came out, and I was thinking, well, that's a neat looking thing. It looks well made, but I plugged it in. It was noisy as heck. So I was like, that's not usable for me. And this one, I saw it used. I bought it. It was noisy as heck, and I decided to go in there and fix it. So basically, by correctly grounding the instrument, it's absolutely dead silent now, and it works perfectly. And that has a fairly wide tonal palette. It's active and also passive, and you can get a great 70s sounding jazz bass sound out of it. It's very Larry Graham sounding when you've got the circuit, the active circuit off, and then when you put that active circuit in, it's got such incredible boost to the lows and the highs that there's about a billion different tone possibilities with it. And then it's also got a series parallel switch, which completely changes it up and fattens things up. So that bass is a good chameleon, very similar to an alembic in the respect that you can get a wide range of tones. Nothing's like an alembic. They're just, beyond everything as far as tonal variation. But that Fender surprised the heck out of me, and it does well. So now we're up to 6 instruments, and then there's always going to be something different, even within a brand or a model. One bass may sound better than another one. One may be lighter and easier to deal with live. So now you're into 7 or 8 instruments, and then there's a whole world of other things that could come into play if you wanted a multi-scale instrument. Then now we're up to 9 instruments, and then say you wanted an acoustic electric bass, then you're up to 10 instruments. And say you want a 6-string or a 7-string, now we're up to 11 instruments, and all of them do different things. They all sound differently. They all, I have multiple jazz basses set up in different ways. I have one set up for, studio use where it's all deadened with foam and runs flat wounds. Then I've got other ones where I want to sound like the Marcus Miller thing, and I'm running round wounds and no pickup covers or anything, so I can hand mute and do all that stuff. And there's just a need for those things. You don't want to be modifying your instrument every time you go out to a session and try and make it do for that day and then have to change it back for the gig that night. So you're up to 12 instruments now, or 13. So that's why you really need multiple instruments. I got to talking with a friend of mine, Rob Phillips, and he and I both sat there and said, he's mainly a guitarist, He has basses as well, but you know, he has a wide range of everything. And you know, depending on the music, depending on what you need for that day, you've got everything at your fingertips. And that's why I really think that it's great to have all that. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, look at Jimmy Johnson. He plays pretty much his series alembic. And yeah, he's got two because he's got to have a fretless and a fretted. But that guy has made an absolute career virtually playing one instrument his whole life. And who can argue with that? I mean, he's so phenomenal. And that's the other part of the equation, is if you're that good, you know, can you make one instrument fit virtually every gig you go to? And I would argue that he is that good and can, you know, make everybody happy, every producer, every artist that he works with, happy with his sound and what he's doing. And he's doing it all on virtually one instrument. So there is that. But I think that you'll find that most guys, even Pino Palladino, you know, he's got his fretless Music Man, he's got one of these Jaguar basses, he's got his Fender P bass, you know, so there's three at least for him. And, you know, most guys like that option or need it. You know, once again, if you're doing a lot of session work, there's always going to be a need for different tones, different feels, different everything. And that's where having multiple instruments really can be a benefit. Anyway, don't let anybody tell you that you should only have one bass, and if you can't play one bass, yeah, you're wasting your time. It's usually a cranky old man like me that would say something stupid like that. But you know, the reality is, if you're a one-dimensional player, you're only doing one thing, you're just going out to a blues gig, live your life with that one Fender P bass. It'll do everything you need to do for the rest of your life. But if you're really paying attention to different sounds and variations in recordings and things, you really need to have the options of having multiple instruments. It's like going elephant hunting with a BB gun. You're not necessarily going to get your elephant with a BB gun. Anyway, hope this helps you defend yourself next time somebody gives you the stink eye about owning multiple basses or guitars.